How many times do you think you've seen this logo today? 1, 2, 10? I don't know. It's hard to tell, but you've definitely seen it at least once coming into this building. There's a vending machine right down there. Today, I'm going to be introducing you and revealing some of the controversies surrounding the Coca-Cola company. I've been researching this since about 2003 when a particular incident happened back home in Britain that interested me to the whole area. I'm going to share what I found with you today. All of us have tried Coca-Cola or a Coca-Cola product, or at least seen it in our lives. It's something that you can't escape. It's sort of the wallpaper. You see the logo, you don't even think, what is that? You know, it just sort of it's part of our everyday experience. Well, today I'm going to discuss with you some things you probably don't think about, like Coca-Cola's relationship with Nazis, some racial problems they've had, controversies with bottled water in the UK, and a water shortage crisis currently going on in India. Okay, I'm going to start out with Coca-Cola's relationship with the Nazis. This is kind of surprising because Coca-Cola is commonly associated with America. It's purposely advertised that way, both in the US and around the world. Eleanor Jones of the University of Virginia points out the 1943 slogan for Coca-Cola was it's the universal symbol of the American way of life. But at the same time they had this slogan out, they were quenching the thirst of Nazis and the entire Third Reich. 1936, Coca-Cola was a major sponsor of the Olympic Games, commonly known as the Nazi Games. Not too controversial at the time, war wasn't going on, but there was a mounting increase of resistance to the Nazis in general. However, once the war kicked off, the Nazis had problems getting Coca-Cola syrup past the Allied blockade, and Coca-Cola Germany had to come up with something new. So they invented, please. Fanta. Created in Nazi Germany after the supply of Coke syrup wasn't able to get to the Allied line, so they came up with something that they could get their hands on locally. They describe it as lemonade in German, but it's the orange stuff. Okay, well that's the Nazis covered. Now let's be a little closer to home. We're going to look at Coca-Cola and race. A 2007 advert for the Super Bowl, this is a still from. They mention a man inspired the nation to dream together in DC 1963. This is a reference to Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, in which, well, we all know it's Martin Luther King's speech, but ironically, the last speech Martin Luther King gave just before his death was the I've been to the mountaintop speech, in which he asks, this is a quote, "We are asking you tonight to go out and tell your neighbours not to buy Coca-Cola in Memphis." He was angry with Coca-Cola because of what he saw as unfair hiring policies. They were hiring whites more than blacks, and black people tended to get lower wages and worse conditions. Many hoped that this would improve with time, but in 2000, Coca-Cola settled a racial bias lawsuit with at the time, the largest settlement of its kind in US history, with $192.5 million being given to workers who were claiming discrimination, pay discrimination, being turned over for advancement, and receiving unfair performance fees. Okay, we've looked at some of the human level problems of Coca-Cola, but now let's turn to some of the problems with their products. In particular, Dasani water in the UK. Dasani, the bottled water product, came out in the UK in 2004. Coca-Cola was expected to be a huge hit it was in the US. However, when the British press learned that it was nothing but filtered tap water, it got a large angry reaction. The press was outraged that they were selling stuff that was cost 0.03 pence a half litre or 95 pence a half litre. But not only that, it turned out the purification and filtering process that Coke put the tap water through actually contaminated the water from safe levels as it was in the tap and added cancer-causing agents such as bromates to the point that were twice as high as EU acceptable limits. Thames Water found no bromates in their supplies, and yeah, blame it on Coke. Okay, that's water issues on a wet island like Britain. What about a dry place like rural India? Here we see data from the Indian Groundwater Board. They were monitoring water supplies in areas close to Coca-Cola bottling plants. Here you can see a very shallow drop in the time before a Coca-Cola plant opened, followed by a massive drop-off after it did. According to the government figures, 9 years before the Coca-Cola plant opened, there was a drop of just 3 meters. But on average, after 9 years of Coca-Cola plant operating, the water table dropped 22.36 meters. Not only that, Paul Brown of The Guardian said that Coca-Cola bottling plants were selling their waste sludge as a fertilizer to the local Indians in an attempt to better relations. But it turned out that a study by the University of Exeter found high levels of lead and cadmium in the fertilizer, which rendered it toxic. The government of Kerala in India are estimating up to $48 million of damage has been caused by Coca-Cola bottling plants in India, and are seeking to claim damages. Okay, so today I've talked about the controversies with the involvement in Nazi Germany, racial prejudice and alleged racial prejudice, Dasani tap water and its problems with toxicity and the water shortage problems in India. Coke has run into a few controversies in its history. It's not that surprising given a multinational corporation existing over a large period of time. So we shouldn't necessarily use judgment or an informative, instructive talk. Okay, thank you very much.
So Jacob, what did you think?
I can tell that he had a really good speech, especially since he said he'd been doing research since 2003, which showed that he had a high interest in it. The whole thing about the Nazis and them being a bad company, like kind of a bad company, was very interesting. It was a good attention there. He had good visuals. They're all relative to the speech. The only thing is, like, I kind of wondered a little bit more about Dasani in the U.S. Like, is ours cleaner? Because I don't want to drink it anymore. But other than that, it was really good.
Right. Well, he's clearly a plant for the Pepsi-Cola company. I suspect that the issue of the filtered water is true for all of those waters. Aquafina is the Pepsi product, and they pretty much use the same kinds of processes. I don't know what their bromide issues are, whether or not they've got the same sort of statistical information on that. And I thought that you did a nice job kind of at the end saying, look, you know, this is not finger throwing and pointing and what the heck. No, it's a big company. You always run into problems whenever these things go on, and you know, I'm just letting you know some of the stuff that's going on. So that seemed pretty straightforward. I thought you had a pretty good setup of the subject. It's an interesting topic. I think you needed to clarify and explain a little bit more when you were getting into that first point about the Nazis, whether or not that was a relationship between the Coca-Cola bottlers, or is that kind of what happened with the local distributors and bottlers, or was it the Coca-Cola company that was involved in that whole process? Because it makes it sound like you know, it was a little unclear. If they're not shipping it there because of the blockades and all those kinds of things, then what's going on? Well, I assume that it's probably just the local companies that were bottling Coca-Cola said, we got to find something else, and so that's what they did. Yeah. So, you know, again, it's one of those things that you got to put it into a little bit of a context. I thought it was interesting. The lawsuit, I thought it was an interesting juxtaposition between the fact that they had the lawsuit and the labor protest going on, and that they used the MLK thing in the ad. So that makes an interesting point there. The visuals, mostly they're transition points. They're not adding a lot to the understanding, except that last one about the water table. And I'm still trying to figure out, okay, how is it that Coca-Cola's plant there has affected the water table? Are they sucking up all the water and sending it out as Coca-Cola? Did they use it for cleaning? Or is it all these people moved into the area where they're working and it's used? So I don't quite know what the theory is there. I see the statistical relationship that's going on, but that was something that was a little bit underdeveloped. All right, thank you.